the other thing Lee and I were interested in is the way the film sits in that tradition of the picaresque, or the sort of, medieval morality play where the hero goes on a physical journey where they meet characters who represent different virtues or vices, and through this learn about their place in the world and learn about some of the pitfalls or the opportunities of the world. And I suppose Tugger in this represents, the sin of vanity or self-regard, or being too narcissistic, plus also the perils of lust, because his lust is incapable of sustaining itself on one subject for very long. So, he'd be the worst person to fall in love with because he would be utterly unreliable. So I think, given that the film is based on the musical, which is based on a collection of poems, this idea that Victoria would be learning about different ways of living life would give it a kind of coming-of-age structure, and with the twist that the vices or the foibles or the weaknesses of of each character are also linked into cat characteristics that Eliot is humorously referencing. And of course, this is the climax of that arc of learning where Tugger appears to be choosing Victoria and then dumping her. And then James Corden, who I wanted to work with for years, who was my first choice for Bustopher, he clearly represents the idea of, the sin of gluttony or the perils of addiction, of giving into that kind of drive without any check or moderation. And I think even the very first draft of the script that Lee Hall and I wrote together, we had this idea that if you're a cat, the kind of grandeur of the interior of the club means nothing. What would be really exciting is to get access to the leftover food in the bins at the back. And so we lead the audience through the grandeur of the interior, making them think that's the destination, when of course the destination of gloriousness, if you're Buster Jones, is the backyard, where it's got 7 dials of backs of clubs where all these clubs and pubs meet. So one of my favourite memories of the rehearsal period was actually when I first tried to work out some of the staging for this scene with my wonderful first assistant director, Ben Howarth, and we stayed late at the studio with some massive oversized rehearsal bins, and I played Bustopher and Ben manhandled the bin, and my assistant Rosie shot it on an iPhone, and we started to work out some of the comedy potentials of the bins. And here, in terms of I think James is brilliant at this moment of seeing McCavity, seeing this incredible new source of food, and there's almost a tinge of sadness or tinge of worry in him as he's drawn to the very thing that he kind of knows will destroy him, as a parable about the power of addiction, the dark power of addiction. It's that thing that you're drawn to the very thing that will destroy you, and the ending of this was to give clarity to the idea that this was a cat who was unable to control his appetites and would eventually work against himself. And so again, it's part of the Victoria's learning curve that she gets drawn into the delight of this character, but then sees the implications of his unchecked appetites.